Welcome back to Bay Sunday. A mathematical physicist and environmental scientist has found common ground in religions from the East and West. And in studio to talk with us this morning is Dr. Will Keepin. He's the author of Belonging to God, Spirituality, Science, and a Universal Path of Divine Love. Thanks for joining us, Dr. Keepin.
Thank you, Kenny. It's a pleasure to be here.
So tell us about your newest book, Belonging to God.
Well, in this book, I basically look at the different religions and find a deep common ground, which is really the path of the heart or the path of love. And what emerges is a picture of the religions, something like the different trees in a forest. You know, some are tall and skinny, others are broad, some have leaves, some have needles, but they're all rooted in the same ground. They all take their life from the same hidden waters, and they all reach to the same supreme sunlight above.
And when you talk about the different, you mentioned different religions. What are you talking about? Christianity? What else?
Christianity, Hinduism, Islam, Judaism, Buddhism. In this book, I focus particularly on the theistic traditions of Christianity, Islam, and Hinduism.
Okay, and so what got you into this? I know you've been studying this for quite a long time. You also got your PhD and your doctorate in this field.
Yes, well, I've been very passionately inspired by the coming together of the religions that seems to be happening at this time in our world. There's been a deeper dialogue between the traditions than we've ever seen in previous centuries. And so one of my mentors brought together religious leaders from all the major world religions. For 30 years, he brought these to his monastery, Father Thomas Keating. And what they found was that at first they expected to find no common ground at all, and they were amazed to find common ground among these religions, particularly around the path of love and the journey of transformation that takes place in the devotee. And then they decided to explore their differences. And at first they thought, oh, this will be really problematic. We're going to get into all kinds of conflicts and division. But they actually found that they bonded even more over their differences than their common ground, because they found the differences were a source of endless delight.
So can you give us any specifics in terms of when you're talking about finding common ground among the different religions? Yes,
for example, they all basically point to this process of the surrender to God. So for example, in the Christian religion, we have, Jesus taught, thy will be done, thy will, not my will. We find this similar in Judaism. We find it in the Bhagavad Gita in Hinduism. The final teaching of God, who is called Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita, is about surrender to God. And we find it also in the Quran, where it says the only valid religion in the sight of God is self-surrender.
Right. And if someone picks up this book and they read it, what do you want them to take away after they've read this entire book?
Well, today there's a lot of critique of religion, and rightly so, because we're all familiar with sort of the violence and extremism in the name of religion. But what's happening is that religion's getting a bad name. And what I've done in this book, rather than to focus on the dumbest and dimmest aspects of religion, is really to focus on the best and the brightest. And then what emerges is a universal path of the heart that leads us into oneness with God. And this is the great gift of the religious traditions. And so I'm trying to show how that is universal across the religions. And then I'm also showing how science provides a way of understanding this, this possibility of the finite human heart uniting with the infinite God.
And when people talk about religions, you see so many conflicts among the different religions in this world. It's been like that for centuries, thousands of years. Why is that?
Well, there's a number of levels. There's some extremists who are basically committed to their particular sect. But I would say that most of the conflict is created by confusion. So for example, Christianity, the name Christ is the name for the Christian symbol for the supreme reality. Other religions have different names for that same reality. And a lot of it ends up being a battle over the names. So for example, it'd be similar to if we said that water is the elixir of life, and then someone from Spain comes along and says, no, aqua is the elixir of life, and someone from Germany comes along and says, no, Wasser is the elixir of life, and then they argue over whether it's Wasser or aqua or water.
Right, but it's
when
the same,
in fact
in the
it's
end,
the
it's the same
substance
thing.
that's the key.
Right.
And the actual drink of the water is the spiritual elixir of life. And similarly, there has been this confusion over the names and the theologies, and yet that which stands behind them, the hidden Christ consciousness, if you speak from a Christian term, or Krishna consciousness in Hindu, or Allah consciousness in Islam. That mystery is the spiritual elixir of life.
And tell us a little bit, we have a little bit of time left, tell us a little bit more about how science plays into all this.
Well, in science, there is this development in the last 30 years of something called fractal geometry. And a fractal is a mathematical structure that is something like a set of Russian dolls. And you know how if you have a Russian dolls, you open it and you spot a smaller one, and you open it, you find a smaller one, you keep going. Right. And the tiniest one looks exactly like the full-sized version. And in mathematics, there's been this discovery that there are these structures where the small subset contains all the complexity and intricacy of the original. And what I'm suggesting here is that spiritual consciousness is structured in the same way, that through our heart we discover the infinite God dwelling within the finite human heart because of this structure of consciousness that's something like Russian dolls. And in mathematics it's spelled out very beautifully, and there are these images that show that the infinite can be contained in the finite. And I'm saying that is a special case of divine consciousness and the way that divinity is structured.
The book is called Belonging to God, Spirituality, Science, and a Universal Path of Divine Love. William Keepin, thank you so much for being here with us.
Thank you, Kenny. It's been a joy to be with you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And we'll be back with more Bay Sunday after this break.